stood between two trees. I must have been 100 feet, but had no fear of it all.
Hello, and welcome to Obsessed and So Obscure, a Matt Berry music podcast. I'm Courtney, and as always, we have Jesse.
Hi.
And Tara.
Hello.
Today, we are overjoyed to welcome a special guest to the show. If you're a regular listener, you're already familiar with Phil Scragg from his work as bassist with the Maypoles and with Milkbone, where he also fills in on guitar, organ, and synth. What you might not know is that Phil is also a respected writer, producer, and music teacher, and that he's played with numerous bands, including Just East, RedLodge, the awesomely named Sax Appeal, and with Robert Plant. Most recently, he's recorded with David Migden and the Twisted Roots on their newest album, Lit Up Like a Fruit Machine, which launched February 12th. Phil, thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Hi.
Hello. So I guess let's just start at the beginning. How did you initially connect with Matt and start collaborating?
Okay, well, this actually does go, I was mentioning before we actually started recording that I've been teaching today. And that has been a part of my life as a musician, has been teaching quite a bit. And I taught at a college in Kent with a guy called James Sedge, who I think you know, right? So James, who was, as well as being the drummer with Matt, actually ran the course at this college down in Tunbridge in Kent. And there was a student there, or ex-student, I should say, because he was already in his 20s, by the name of Andy Vickery. Are you guys familiar with Andy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
Guitarist with, he was the guitarist for a long time with Matt. He was there. So Andy was actually the very first connection with Matt. Now, Andy was really was a prodigy, like 17 years old. He was already an amazing guitarist. And I think he might have been about that age when he first met Matt. And he was in a little power trio, I think you might call it, with a young drummer and bass player who were brothers. And you're going to have to forgive me, I cannot quite remember their names. George and Charlie, and I cannot remember their surname. Yeah. Who were both kids of a guy called Ray Russell, guitarist who wrote a lot of film music over here, as well as being a session player on a lot of quite big albums from the 70s. And I think, to be honest, that was probably what excited Matt was probably because being a fan of that era of music, right. Probably knew about Ray, found out about that he had these kids in music, and then somehow found this entire band. Now, this was all quite new to Matt at this point. He was writing some songs and he decided he wanted to perform them live. So he went out initially with those three guys as his band. And those were Matt's first, as far as I know, as I understand it, those was kind of Matt's first kind of like proper performances doing his own material with a band. And that ran for a while, and for various reasons, the two brothers dropped out. I'm not entirely sure why, but Andy was still there. And then, so Matt said, "Oh, Andy, I need another band. So who to get in?" He went, "Well, I don't really know anyone, my age or my contemporaries that'd be good enough." He said, "But my teachers were good." So he asked James to come and do it. And so I think James joined, and I'm going to jump around a little bit. So this band, the Twisted Roots, that we were mentioning, originally James was the drummer in the Twisted Roots, along with Graham Mann. Now Graham is our keyboard player and stunt trombone player in Matt's band.
Right.
So it was actually Graham and James and Andy. Now let me think, who else was that? Was it just them? And then I think Cecilia was already there, Cecilia Phage. And I think that was the band that then did the next tour. At that point there, I think I just started working at working on the course. And I had, at the time, Ollie, my son, who's out gigging tonight, was very young. And I was actually the principal kind of carer for Ollie. And Andy said, "Oh, I would have asked you, but I knew you wouldn't be able to come out on tour because you have to look after a 3-year-old, however Ollie old, So fast forward, not that, a few years later, and Matt was doing these gigs, these tours. They were not that frequent, because it always had to obviously fit in with his demands of everything he was doing, TV and acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
which has always been for him you know, his incredibly successful acting career is just an impediment to being a musician.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It's the bread
It
and
pays.
butter, but
It pays the bills.
yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, at some point there was a point where basically they were about to go out on tour, and about a week before they were going out on tour, the bass player at the time had to drop out. Something came up big that he couldn't say no to. So I got a phone call saying, "Can you come and do Matt's tour? Very short notice." And I went, "Yeah, all right." So what happened was, let me get it right. 2 nights before the tour started, I went down to Tunbridge to rehearse. I met Matt for the very first time. And I'd been learning, they'd sent me these songs to learn, and I'd kind of like been charting them out by hand from the recordings or whatever. And I was quite nervous to meet Matt, really, but you know, he was very nice and made me feel sort of very relaxed. Except when I started playing.
Oh
I realised
gosh.
after about 3 numbers in, he was in hysterics. He was just looking at me and crying with laughter. And I thought, what is it? And you guys probably don't know about me. I do bass face, if you know the phenomenon of bass. I do a lot of bass. I'm never going to be able to change now. And basically, he was just in stitches about some of the expressions I was pulling. But he was pleased that I was into the music and that I was doing enough into it to be doing that. So I was
It was fucking hilarious.
stop
That's
playing
funny.
and like realised this guy's just crying with laughter, staring at me.
Oh my gosh. I would have just like left. I'd been like, okay, it was fun. Nice meeting you. Bye.
So I felt a bit kind of like so, and we rehearsed for about 2-3 hours, and then you know that was it. And then he said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to do this tune called The Pheasant tomorrow night."
Oh my gosh.
and I went, "What? You didn't say that? Yeah, that's not on the list." He said, "Well, I think we'll be good on the tour." So I had to learn The Pheasant the next day and go to the rehearsal the next evening.
Oh my god. And not like that's a simple song either.
No.
It's not a song at all. And then the next day we were in the bus and on our way to the first gig, which I think was in Bristol. That's right, it was in Bristol. And
Wow.
so
Nice.
we had a total. Probably had a total about 6 hours rehearsal for that tour, I should think. And believe me,
You couldn't tell.
that's normal for Matt. Matt does. He's really like, you know, normally a tour is one afternoon's rehearsal before we go out on tour. And
This
then
is
it's
like, I know it, so you know, y'all will catch on, right?
Keep up.
We get through it. Somehow we get through it. We do. Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
it works. But that is kind of, again, it's partly Matt's schedule. Just means we can't do it any other way. It's so often he's kind of like, I've got an interview, I've got to do that. I'm flying back from America here. Then I've got 2 days, but I've got to fit in these interviews and talk about this. But yeah, I think there's a 3-hour slot here where we could get a rehearsal in. And so that's kind of how it went. Anyway, so I did did this fill-in tour, and I thought, well, that's great, you know, and I enjoyed it. And Matt and I, straight away, it was kind of like the first day, you know, because I was feeling, you know, so you're a bit of a fish out of water. It's a band that they all know each other and they're all, you know, used to doing the thing, and you're the new guy. So I got on the bus, and just Matt came and just sat next to me straight away and went, "Hello," and I went, "Oh, hi," and. I think I had a copy of this music magazine, Sound on Sound. And he went, "Oh, you got Sound on Sound?" He said, "I love that. What are the latest articles?" And we suddenly realised that we're both basically complete nerds about recording and synth, and, you know, and we just discovered we had this incredible commonality in terms of the music we loved and how records are made. We're really fascinated by it. And then I was able to tell him a couple of like stories which I've never, no one else has ever been impressed by. Like I went to dinner with this guy Vangelis. Do you know Vangelis?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went to dinner. He cooked dinner for me and a band I was in one time. We went to his house, and then at the end of the evening, we were all kind of just lying around drinking wine. And he had his entire studio set up, reproduced in his incredible luxury flat in by Hyde Park. And he said, "Okay, now I'm going to play for you guys." He had a brandy and a big cigar.
Oh my
and
gosh.
he'd improvise, and we just lay on the floor while he improvised this big hour-long set on synth. And Matt was going, oh my god, you met Van Gogh, you know. And he kind of
I can imagine his reaction to that. Yeah.
He was completely sort of, you know. And anyway, so we just ended up chatting loads, and you know, the tour went well, and it just worked out that the guy who I was filling in for, the work that he'd been offered was, you know, it was something really that he wanted to do, and he was getting a lot of production work the guy as well. And so they just said, look, he's not really that fussed about doing it again. Do you want to just carry on doing the tours now? You might as well. You've learnt the stuff now. So I went, all right.
So you started on the Kill the Wolf tour then?
Yeah, that it would be 20. I remember it was, I think, 2012, 2013. You probably know better than me.
I think, what was it, 2013 was Kill the
definitely
Wolf?
Kill the
I
Wolf.
thought
Kill the Wolf,
2013.
Yeah, it would have been Kill the Wolf, because I remember we were doing things like,
So you already
Pheasants.
knew.
Oh
you
my
knew,
God.
you knew James and you knew
James
Cecilia
and I knew
and Graham.
Andy and Graham, yeah. So I was kind of like, but that, it was, and then I met Cecilia, and of course Mark Morris
Right.
was on there as well, and it was fun from the get go. Really, it was very easy, and musically, it was just like such a good fit for me. More so actually than a lot of music I've ever played in my life, because this is the thing that I guess I should talk a bit more about. Is this, because Matt and I are separated in age. By God, I'm quite a bit older than him. I'm 14 years older than him, something like that. But our musical, I used to say to him, "How come you love all the albums I love? You should be." And he went, "I don't know. It's just like those were the ones that I listened to when I was growing up." He said he was getting them. I said, they were the ones for me as well. And we just got this real sort of common ground of musical, that we loved listening to.
I totally get that, because it's the same thing for me. I that's all the music. I mean, Matt's a couple of years older than me, but I love all the music from like the late 60s and the early 70s, because that's what my mom listened to. That's what I grew up listening to. And it's just, I love it. That's what I've always been drawn to. My mom always says I was like born in the wrong time. So, and I think that's also why I was drawn to Matt's music too, because it's very much a throwback sound. So it's cool.
Totally. I mean, he's completely, I didn't want to use, I was trying to avoid the word obsessed, but there is a certain
That's okay. We use that word all the time.
obsession with the sound world and the atmosphere that's created by, he's in a way, Matt's in fact more old school than me, because I think he's really obsessed with getting a 60s sound on a lot of his recordings.
Yeah.
I'm probably more a 70s sound with what I kind of like. But what I think we both like is there's got to be a level of imperfection in the right sort of way. I don't think we're that interested in something that sounds too polished, if you know what I mean. It's got to have, like a painting's got to have like some little fault in it, or something that draws your eye and something that draws your ear. And when we did the Milkbone album, that was something I think we were both really aware of. Was we kept saying, should we get so-and-so in? Like, should we get Andy in to play guitar? And we went, no, he's too good. In a way, for what it was, he was too good. And we said, should we get Graham in to play synths? We went, no, he's too good. It's got to be a little bit
rough around the edges.
A little bit. We were playing what we heard in our heads, and we had a real direct connection to that music. And we didn't really want to have to explain it to someone else and try and get them to do it, although they could probably have done it better than us ultimately.
Right.
We really feel, we know that this is just coming straight out from what we listen to into our hands, and we'll play it as best we can. And if it sounds a little bit, what's the word we keep using? Wonky. Got to keep the wonk. That's what he always said. It's got to have the wonk in it, all the music. Otherwise, it kind of.
That's so funny.
I'm sure the way the album was recorded contributed to that too, since it was during quarantine and everyone was in their own studios, right?
Yeah, it totally was. I'm going to share something with you which I may change my mind about, if that's all right. This recording was kind of very important to me because in 2019 my wife was killed in a car accident.
Oh
my God, I'm so sorry.
And Matt was very supportive to me throughout that thing. But not only was he supportive, he tried to keep me busy as well. Sort of in the time after that happened. And this album was a big part of that.
Yeah.
He kind of would keep pushing me to sort of do things at a time when perhaps I was trying to keep life going, keep my son, and everything like that, keep that all on course. And music was not necessarily foremost in my mind, but of course, in the end, it became something that really, really helped me, I think. And and I think Matt, in a very sort of like, it's not so much that I was aware of it until afterwards, but I thought, yeah, because I think I actually wrote the track that became, I think, Milkbone. I just wrote that, like messing around. I was trying to keep myself busy. I sent it to Matt. I said, "Is this any good?" And he wrote back. He said, "You know it is. We should do an album."
That's actually my favorite track on the entire album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, great. Well, I'm really so that was the kicking off point, was that track. And and then then we just started, he started kind of like pushing me to keep writing things, and then he'd send me sometimes quite small fragments of things, but I know what it was. Actually, it was the one that really made us know it was going to work was, there's a track called Two Sequences. Mm-hmm. Now that was, Matt sent me 3 bits of music, and I had just written something, and it's in, I'm trying to think, it's a lot of it's in 7/8, that track, if we can get a bit technical. He happened to send me these things that were in 7/8. They were the same tempo, totally coincidentally, and the same key as what I'd been writing. We put them, I layered them on top of each other. Literally, there are places where what I wrote the day before and what he sent me, I just literally put them on top of each other and went, oh.
That's crazy.
That's weird. Yeah.
So that's how it worked then. You just, because some of it was done during lockdown too, right?
It was pretty much all during lockdown. So it was all sending things back and forth. And first of all, I did quite a lot of drum programming, and Matt hates programmed drums. And he said, and I was going like, well, it gives us a good idea. And I thought some of it, I work hard on my drum programming, and I think I'm pretty good at it. Yeah. But he went, no. He said, let's get James. So, I went, yeah, you're probably right. I said, well, I'll try it, but I reserve the right to fire him if I don't like it. He went, yeah, all right. And it was the same with James. The first track I sent James, he went like, he just did it. He sent the track back, and I went, oh my God, that's absolutely exactly the drums I'd like to hear on there. So it was a really good fit. And so we just carried on like that, which was it was like a leapfrogging thing. I would write pieces, send them to Matt. He's quite fast the way he works. So you can probably guess that he's like that. He's very like mercurial, if you like, and he'll jump around from thing to thing. He doesn't want to spend too long on things, whereas I can be nose to the grindstone and just chip away until I think something is right. And sometimes, I think that actually worked quite well, those two sort of aspects to things. And sometimes I'd chip away and I'd do something for, days, send it to Matt, and he'd go, cut that up there, swatch that one round there, turn that bit over there. And I go, really? Put it all together. He'd say, yeah, you've put that bit in the wrong place. That's obviously should be there. And I go like, and so I'd cut it round and go, he's right. It's really, it's, so there was, I mean, I don't think he wouldn't, have any problem with me saying that, but I probably did in terms of like getting the album produced and everything like that. I probably did most of the heavy lifting on that. but it absolutely would never, ever, ever have been made without Matt pushing me to sort of keep doing it and keep saying, "Oh, no question." I told him, I said, you have, because he, I said, "You've got no idea. This would never have happened without you." So so it's kind of, it is something that I was very proud of having done it. And we are working on another one, believe it or not. In fact, I've got hard drives full of things.
Yay! Good. We were going to ask you if you were planning to do another one.
We've been trying some different things. I spent a couple of days with James playing live together, just jamming, just recording, just bass and drums. But I prepared some synth loops and things like that. And we got some really interesting stuff to that, which Matt has now got. When he gets a minute, he may be
a minute, right?
Yeah.
We have to ask, because we're all curious, where did the name Milkbone come from? Why Milkbone?
Matt was doing a late night shoot of What We Do in the Shadows in a pet shop.
Okay.
To the end aisle and found a bag of Milkbone. Sent me a photo of it going like that. And I went, well, that's the name. That should be the name of the band. And he went, "You're joking, aren't you?" But then Ollie, my son, came and said, "Yeah, that's a really good name."
That's good. So funny, because we're like, do they not have Milkbone there for like dogs?
No, it was
Where did that come from?
Don't ask me why. But he was literally, he sent me a photo. He was in costume, pointing at this bag of Milkbone.
I can just see that.
Yeah, I can too.
Famous Matt Berry pointing.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So we went like, yeah, there you go.
That works.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We thought it was something deeply poetic.
It could be deeply poetic. It could also be deeply rude in some ways, especially if you look at the cover of the album, which is a painting, which it's a detail of, but I don't know if you guys know that painting. Again, you might want to cut this out. It's pretty obvious what it is when you see the painting in full, which is basically a huge male appendage. It's done in the style of Francis Bacon, the painter. It's really a lovely painting. But Matt, again, this is just what Matt will do to you. So I'm saying, we need some art. He said, "Oh, I think I've got a really good idea for the cover." And he just he goes, "There you go." And I go,
"This cover."
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I do love it.
I mean, we knew
sense.
as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, that he used that painting in Toast of London.
Yeah, that's right.
In Francis and in Tinseltown. Yeah, it was in Francis Bacon's.
It's like a little, yeah.
So funny.
So there you go. So that's where the name came from, and that's kind of how the whole Milkbone thing happened.
It was built out of tragedy.
Yeah, this sort of thing happens to everyone, doesn't it? And it does kind of inform the story quite a lot, really.
Well, it does, and just because it happens to everybody doesn't mean it's any less significant. I mean, that's huge and tragic. And it's kind of like with COVID also in general. Obviously COVID was horrible for so many reasons, but in a way, with so many creative people being locked down, a lot of good and interesting things came from it too. Like
I totally agree with you, and I think there will be a lot more. I think we're going to see more over the next couple of years. I think of things that people have kind of worked on through that period. I think to be honest, this album, the Twisted Roots album, that wouldn't have happened. Again, that's definitely came out of COVID, because David Migden, who's the songwriter and singer, had really kind of like, he'd dried up with his writing. And he kind of like moved away into, I mean, we were still playing a bit, but not much. And he was kind of like putting all his energy into doing massive cycling races and running and going abroad to site. And that's just seemed to be where he really wanted to devote his energies. And then COVID came and he was suddenly locked down again, literally, and he came up with this out very quickly. He wrote an entire album's worth of songs, and then we started rehearsing them. And then got it, and got the album recorded pretty quickly, sort of immediately after that.
I'm excited for it.
That's crazy to me. Yeah,
I listened to. There's one album on Spotify, which was the first one I listened to because that was the only one I knew of, and I love it.
Yeah.
I listened to it. Wasn't what I expected at all. I don't know what I was expecting really, but I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like super authentic Louisiana and New Orleans.
There's a lot of New Orleans in there. and then that's kind of like with a bit of extra darkness that you might get from Tom Waits or a Nick Cave. He loves Nick Cave and things like that.
Yes, I heard that too.
Yeah, there's a very Southern Gothic tinge to
Right.
it that really works.
That's a really good way of putting it, Southern Gothic. Yeah, he'd love that, actually. Yeah, totally right, yeah.
The Rougarou, I think that's how that song was the first one that drew me in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can totally see myself in New Orleans right now, just at a jazz club listening to this. This is so good. And I hope the new one, I am like really excited to listen to it.
New one it's good. It's definitely got some New Orleans things. The track I've sent you isn't quite like that. The track, it's called I Wish You Harm, and it's kind of dedicated to certain politicians that we might all be familiar with, like, certain blonde-haired leaders of...
Well, I can think of two, one on your side and one on our side.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, it's kind of dedicated to, and it's a great angry song. It's really good.
I'm disgusted by every single thing that you do. I can't stand the way that you think. Every dirty little word that falls out of your mouth is like a turd dropping into my drink. I don't agree with any of your opinions, as in I don't agree that they belong to you. You're just some kind of regurgitated personality with a cold and monetized point of view. And I know it ain't right, and I know that it's wrong, but I wish you harm, I wish you pain. Make all your teeth fall out your head, one rotten, one remains. I hope you fail, and I wish you fall. I hope that everyone is just their turn to kick you in the balls. I wish you harm.
I love angry political music.
Yeah.
Courtney,
One more question about Milkbone. I remember when the album was released, there was some talk taking the project live. Is that still something that might be in the works, or?
It's totally in the works. It's like, how do we do it? Because it was built up with in kind of quite a lot of keyboards and things like that, and you just think, I'm certain it's doable. It's just a matter of like having the time to rethink it a little bit. I mean, what's Matt suggested, because he wants us to play again live quite soon with the Maypoles, and he said, let's do some Milkbone tunes when we do the tour.
Yeah.
And I went, really? He went, yeah. So so that may be what will happen.
I can't imagine how happy we are to hear that.
Yes. I mean, none of
Might
us
have some
have
plane
ever
tickets in our future.
Right, exactly. Yeah, none of us have ever gone to see you all live, obviously.
Right.
So we always, all three of us are like, as soon as something is announced, we are gone.
I have a savings account that is literally just to go to the UK for when you guys decide to tour again. No word of a lie. It does not get touched. It just gets added to.
Well, yeah, I mean, we shall see. I definitely think it is doable. I mean, there was a point James and I were at one point talking about it and saying, well, we could probably rehearse it, get it done. And we were almost thinking we'd have to do it and like have some way that Matt could fit in quite simply. No disrespect to Matt, only because of his schedule. You know what I mean?
Right,
yeah.
Like, we'd have to do a lot of the work, get it rehearsed up ready, and then kind of like find a time when Matt could come and do it but it would just be like, he wouldn't, it'd be tough for Matt because, it's just a matter of like working out the best way that you do it, where he would perhaps not have to work too hard learning too much stuff, simply because when's he going to have the time to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the curse of his success. It just gets in the way of everything.
That's it. We're like very happy for his success because now you tell people you're like Matt Berry and they're like, oh yeah, what we do in the shadows.
Yeah.
Also like kind of stolen, I feel like, a little bit from us because obviously we're very big fans.
I think that there are people who have that sort of thing. And it's this thing which, which I kind of noticed even in the relatively short period that I was touring, was like the first tour I did, it was like real diehard music fans. It was great and it was really exciting. Then the next tour, you thought, hang on, I think about 50% of the audience are waiting for him to start doing some stand-up or something. No. And it all starts to get a little bit, you know what I mean? And you can see that half the audience are going like, what the fuck fuck is this? This isn't funny.
Music? What the hell? Yeah.
And it actually became a bit of a, it kind of, it took a little bit of the edge off the last tour we did, in a way, because I think we all agreed it was this thing like, well, it's like you want the people there who are there for, for the music kind of thing. And, and he's, again, it's going to be, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you kind of get around that, really.
Yeah. And we actually talked about, go ahead, Courtney.
I was just going to say that was for the Small Hours, right? That most recent tour.
Yeah. Now the Small Hours, which I mean, to be honest, I really enjoyed that tour. But I think we did confuse quite a lot of not least because we started we did it, and quite intentionally, the first number we played was that great long jazz wig out, the Night Terrors thing, which is pretty out there, and that was the opening number. Good evening, everyone. Jazz.
Tara would have been gone. She has no patience for songs over 3 minutes.
3-4 minutes. That's my limit. But yeah, you just have people staring at you from the audience, like, "What the fuck is this? I don't know what I came here for."
And it was
that's sad.
It was like, but it was really exciting. Also, it was incredibly hard to play, and it was like, why are we doing this at the first number? Talk about the first number of the first gig, and let's just play the hardest thing we've ever played in our life. But it was really exciting at the same time, and it kind of like once you got, I was talking with Matt about this the other day, and he said, and once you got through that, the rest of the gig's just gravy. It's just great because you know what I mean. It's like, well, if we did that, it's fun, and
then you could just have fun.
It was interesting, that album. It was interesting because that was the album we did in the studio, which was such fun. But I would put it this way: I'd be surprised if Matt chose to do an album like that again. His process is, I mean, I kind of get it because it's in a way not dissimilar. I mean, I love playing with other guys. I love putting stuff down live in a studio, but there is also a huge control freak side of me, as there is with Matt. And I think for Matt, it's no accident that he's a painter as well. You know what I mean? And you put these things together stroke by stroke.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're in control of each of those brush strokes and things like that. And I think that he kind of approaches music, even though he might do it quite fast, and he does. He works fast when he does music, and I've not seen him paint. I can imagine he works fast when he paints as well. But he's kind of at the helm all the way through. Yeah,
I mean, he's used to doing things on his own, so I can see
that's the way he's done it.
Giving up that control would be tough.
He won't let me play bass even on it. We always what do you think of the bass on this? Yeah, it's very good, Matt. But that's great. He's got great. I mean, he's a very musical guy. He has a real kind of like instinct for what he wants, and I get all that because I like doing. I've done albums where I've played everything on the album, and it's very satisfying. In some ways to do that, especially if people don't really notice that that's how you've done it afterwards. If it doesn't really sound like that. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean, it's kind of like I want it to sound natural and organic, but also if you've got those ideas in your head, if you've got an idea about how a drum part should go or how a guitar part or a bass part, why not? If you can do it, and we, with technology these days, we can do it. Mm-hmm. So and I think Matt, also coming from things like what's one of his absolute all-time favorite artists, Jean-Michel Jarre, who did a whole album completely on his own. Mike Oldfield, who produced a whole album completely on his own. Those were the things when he was a kid, the first things that he listened to. And he went, what? Someone did this completely alone and they created this sound out of, from nothing. Yeah. So, that's I think, that's his process.
I think that's one of the things that's been so compelling is that he's mentioned that in so many interviews. Like, he just said that he listened to Mike Oldfield and realized that at such a young age he played all those instruments, and he's like, well, I better get cracking. It's like, okay, so he just picked up instruments and started playing. Like, not everybody can do that, so you have to have some level of a musical gift, a natural musical ability to just be able to pick up an instrument and start playing. And that's, I mean, I don't know if he really understands that that's not something everybody can do.
And without being able to read music on top
right.
of it.
No, I mean, it also takes. I mean, don't underestimate just a bit of bravado and a bit of cockiness about going into these things. Gets you a long way. And I'm not saying that in any disrespect. It's
No.
part of the toolbox.
Mhm.
Is if you've got the like the the balls to try it, you might do it, sort of thing. And Matt, he will just go like, I've seen him do it. I kind of like sometimes I go like, flipping out, you've got a lot of neck. Just doing something like he just goes for it, And you get the only thing that he's annoyed about at the moment, is drumming. He still wants to be like, he really wants to master drumming. That's the one, because he can't, because he hates drum programming. He loves real drumming, but he knows he's not quite there with the drumming yet. I mean, he's done a few things where he's drummed on them, and it works great. But also I think he loves quite, technically, what's the right word? Just really good drummers. He loves that sound. So it's like he's not going to be satisfied. It's the one thing at the moment he'll kind of like. So he'll generally bring in a drummer to do the drumming.
Yeah,
Drums are hard though.
it would probably take some of the magic out of the whole thing too.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah. I mean, there's part of it is it's such a joy, isn't it? Teaching yourself. I mean, I'm self-taught. I never had any lessons.
That's amazing.
On bass.
Not many people do that.
But you couldn't. You could. There was no. How could I have done it? All there was listening to records. That's all I had. So just get the stylus, put it back at the beginning, play it again and again, and then later on got a tape recorder and actually recorded it, and then I could actually slow it down, to half speed and learn things like that. But of course, it was great in a way because you're pushing your ear to develop all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you're
Tell us
learning
a little bit about your influences.
Well, it's a lot of my music actually. I think it was probably my mum initially. My mum was French, and she grew up in Paris in the sort of late in the 50s when and she listened to loads of the exiled kind of American jazz players who based themselves over there after the war in through the 50s and early 60s. She would go out and dance at the clubs in Paris and listen to all that. So she brought a lot of jazz music into the house. But she loved the Beatles and things like that. And then I remember when I was about 12 or something, and she said, right, she gave me some money. She said, right, you can go and buy an LP. She said, but can you get me one as well? Except in her French. And she said, okay, so you buy what you want, but you get me Led Zeppelin 2. This album. So I think I bought Black
That's a
Sabbath.
favorite of mine.
Yeah, I think I bought Black Sabbath and I bought Led Zeppelin 2. And then as soon as I heard Led Zeppelin 2, I kind of think, well, this Black Sabbath's rubbish compared to Led Zeppelin 2.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Little knowing that I would end up working with Robert Plant many, many years later. Yeah, I mean, so that was it. So she loves that sort of thing. And then once I got into things, she would listen to lots of what I was into. And I did go through, I mean, I grew up in that period of prog rock. And for me, of course, when you're trying to become a good musician, you're looking for people who are kind of like excel in that instrument. And I was finding that, that's where you found it at that time. I guess prog rock was where everyone was trying to play their instrument as well as they possibly could. So that's what I was like learning. And then later on, I got into a lot more funk and rock, jazz and things like that. But I think it was the prog thing that, then it all went away. Punk came and, so I never played prog for real. It was just like something I grew up with until I met Matt. and then suddenly I was sitting there one night and I borrowed the other guy's Rickenbacker bass, which was like the prog classic bass. I'd never had a Rickenbacker, and we were doing the Fez. He said, we were doing the Pheasant. I went, hang on, I'm on stage playing a Rickenbacker, playing prog rock.
Dream fulfilled.
Yeah, this is what I was born to do. But it took that long. But yeah, so it was, so I guess it was a lot of that side of things. So, I mean, and I if you want to push yourself as, again, pushing myself as a musician, I was very much drawn to jazz because harmonically it was fascinating, rhythmically it was fascinating, and it just made me, and if you're not studying classical music and studying classical theory, it's where you're going to get your theory. And it's, I teach lots of kids rock and stuff like that, but all the theory I teach them comes from jazz because it's the same, the music theory is the same, and you're going to get as sophisticated as you need to get through studying jazz theory. So that's what I use to teach students, but I'm not really a jazz. So then you end up doing lots of jazz gigs, and then I had played double bass for a while. But I kind of love playing jazz. And I love the challenge of it. But quite often I say, yeah, do I actually like listening to it? Am I that honest as a jazz musician in terms of, do I spend all my life listening to, do I really understand the history of it that well? And I thought, well, I know I listen to a lot, but I don't really, I know where my roots are. My roots were in prog, and then later on, I suppose, more in electric, Fusion, Weather Report and bands like that. And that's where and then lots of synth stuff as well, because I've been parallel as being a bass player. I've been absolutely mad about synthesizers. This is again where Matt and I kind of had our common ground. I've been obsessed with synthesizers since I was about 11 years old. I don't know why. And taking it, and I used to like mess around with tape recorders, and I found out that if you put a radio on top of an old television and then started messing around with do you remember when televisions had controls on the back? You guys are probably too young, but you used to have things that would make the horizontal go up and down on the picture. But if you put a radio on top and fiddled with those, the radio would make really weird sounds. So I used to kind of like record that and, and then on a tape and then play some bass over the top or something completely nuts like that. So kind of like
that's so cool. Kind of
experimentalist and sort of, and just interested in sounds and things like that. And I think, again, I'm as interested in sound and production as I am in music, as is Matt, I believe, as well. So, yeah. So, I mean, we keep, I think we discussed it enough, but you can kind of see why Matt and I have quite a lot in common.
Yeah.
Here.
You're like kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Plenty to talk about.
That's all we talk about when we chat. It's just like we just go on and on about anything. God knows what anyone else would think listening to it.
I'm sure he was thrilled to have someone to talk with,
right?
About synths with.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because who else is he talking about synths with?
Yeah. He's probably got a few other mates, but yeah, for me it was great because honestly, like there were very few other people. Like I've got this. If you can see, I've got this bit of modular stuff here.
Yeah.
My son just comes in and he's just kind of like, because he's like, all you need is a guitar. You don't need all this rubbish. He has no interest at all in anything other than, 3 chords and the truth, as he would put it.
That's so funny. I do want to ask you about Velvet Black on Milkbone. And Courtney and I both have the vinyl version. And the album version, obviously, is just instrumental, as is the rest of the album. But then you released a digital-only version of Velvet Black featuring the vocals of Harriet Langley. And it's brilliant. Yeah. And I just want to know why that was released after the fact.
Because I played... That tune was pretty much written in its entirety before we started the Milkbone thing. That's actually another project which I will talk about, which I have with my sister called RedLodge, which was initially my sister's she's a lyricist and she's a great songwriter. We did one album together where she sang by her own admission. I mean, I think it's great, actually. You can find, I think it's on Spotify. We did an album called Egdon Heath, which was based on a lot of poems of Thomas Hardy that my sister had sort of set to music, and then I produced it, and then we ended up co-writing quite a lot of tracks.
Then he flew down and seized upon a stem of hay. He proudly took it up to where his nest was underway. I saw his tongue, I saw his crocus-colored bill, I saw it parting first, then closing as he turned his drill.
But through it all, she was very self-conscious about her voice, but we knew we wanted to do another album. And then I'd met Harriet. I produced an album of hers from a band she had called the Top Cat Collective, and I just thought her voice was amazing. And again, we got on pretty well. And so when we did a second RedLodge album, Harriet became the vocalist on that album.
Could you do it with your eyes closed? And just suppose they told you were there when you were nowhere near. And shall I tell you something you don't care? Someone somewhere that I forgot. I had you there. You took the shot. I want what you've got. I want what you've
We wrote Velvet Black. Well, I kind of wrote, that's kind of one of my songs, but my sister wrote the lyric. When Harriet sang it, I played it to, and we decided not to put it on the RedLodge album. We decided it was a bit too proggy. The RedLodge albums, if you hear it, it's not out yet, by the way. I haven't released it. So Velvet Black didn't fit on it somehow. So we took it off. I played it to Matt and said, do you think this is Milkbone? He said, well, I really like the tune. He said, but we let's keep it instrumental. And he said, also, you've got far too many ideas on there. Matt's way. Send it to me. And so he said, send me all the tracks. So I sent him the whole tracks. And this is why I talk about Matt's speed of work. About 3 hours later, he sent back this completely stripped down version of it. And he said, now let's get, and then I said, well, all right, in that case, let's get Graham to play the vocal line on trombone. Because it's a bit like, the trombone's got something of a voice, a vocal quality to it sort of thing. So I thought that would work. And so it ended up, the version. And then James's drums, which are quite loud on the, we realised, well, they don't work anymore with this sort of stripped down one. So I got James to do a new drum thing where he just played very gently with brushes. So we've got this totally sort of contrasting kind of versions of the song. But I really, I really like that version with Harriet singing on. And I thought, I really want to, put this out and let people hear it. And I wanted people to hear Harriet sing as well, because I think
How far away? What would it take? What if I closed my eyes and dreamt of you? Would light years break in velvet black? Would fingers find the ones they felt for so long? Could we turn back? Time will isolate, trouble separate. In overview, what would we do? Salvation tempts us all in black and white. Might we get through? In
It really, when I heard it the first time, to me it sounded like a James Bond theme.
Yes, that's quite good.
Very cinematic.
So
Yeah.
I could totally see opening credits for a huge movie, specifically James Bond, which is weird because I'm not like a Bond fan, but it's so good. Her voice is amazing.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, she's on tomorrow night's launch. I'm actually playing in the support band that happens to be Harriet's new band, which she goes on to name Essie West. But I'm the bass player in that band, but that's all her own songs. So,
Awesome.
I'm doubling up tomorrow night.
I wanted to ask, it's jumping back a little, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you a little more about touring and some of your memories of touring. What are your favorite memories of being on the road, besides bonding over Stimps and prog rock with Matt?
Right.
You mean being on the road generally, or with Maypole specifically?
Probably with the
Both.
Maples, and then specifically
The
with
Maypole specifically, and probably also what am I allowed to tell you without getting into trouble about my favourite memories of touring?
You can get in a little trouble.
There has been a bit of a, and it's not a contrived thing, but there seems to be one night of every tour of the Matt thing where we all just get out of control. I don't know why it happens. It just seems, I think you need to let off steam at some point in the tour. Sometimes it's because some things have gone a bit wrong for a few days, and then you have, and then you suddenly go, you know what, we've just got to, or you just and you get lucky, you get to a place and that they say, oh, we don't need to close or whatever. It can be a club that you're playing at and they say, oh no, we stay open all night. And you go, and then they say, right, who wants Jaeger bombs? Who wants it?
oh my god.
And so and then it all begins, and so that's happened on a few occasions, and then ended up with me being videoed outside my room, unable to get in, and then wonderful caring tour manager holding my head as I'm throwing up in the toilet, filming with his other hand at the same time to make sure he can share it with everyone the next day.
Oh my god.
Perfect. Wonderful.
And then you
yeah.
wake up the next morning and you've had about 2 hours sleep and you've got the worst hangover and you've got to be in the bus in half an hour and you think, am I going to throw up again before I get on the bus?
Does the bus have a bathroom? Like, what is the deal with the bus?
It's quite small, splitter bus, because we're only doing, the tours are usually organised quite well in terms of short runs between, I've done tours with other bands where it's like, Aberdeen and then down in Penzance, and then you're back up to Manchester, things like, which probably means nothing to you, because I know you're used to much bigger journeys than we are here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You think about a 400-mile journey, it's like, but, it's kind of here. It's and also it's kind of like stuck in a van with a full of farting people, kind of like it's not the best way to travel sometimes.
This is one of the reasons we want to get Cecilia on, because we want to know what it was like being the only girl in this bus.
Yeah. Got to get Cecilia, and she is. I'm not going to say she farts with the best of them. I wouldn't. But she's totally.
bless
You have to, right? You
totally
have to.
She is completely unfazed by all that stuff. It's
So
nothing.
funny.
She's great. We actually became really good pals on tours. I think Cecilia, we got on great. In fact, she quite enjoys one of those tours. On the first tour I did, when I was being like we were playing in Liverpool, he said, "Oh, let's go to a club," and I was going like. Afterwards she said it should have been a film. She said because we were walking away from the venue and I was being really grumpy. I don't want to go to a club. I'm dancing. I'm too old. And it was like there should have been a cut. It was like absolutely going crazy. And we were all. It was great. It was Matt. We were all the band. We were all in this. Dancing around our virtual handbags, completely. She said it was it seemed like about 40 minutes later. So they're not quite sure what happened. But it was great. So just sort of but you do need to do it. You do need to kind of have these releases a little bit. Because I know it's such a weird combination of lots of fun, incredibly boring, really tiring sometimes, getting grumpy because you can't eat or something like it's. But overall, I love it. I mean, I've not done, although I've toured quite a lot. I've never done a real a 6 month. You know what I mean? Those ones where you're just away.
Yeah.
Forever. And I have friends who do it, and people deal with it differently. Some people you know, they find different ways of coping with it. And some people simply don't cope with it. And, you know, and it can really take a toll. But for me, it's kind of like, I've really enjoyed it. And it's also, there's I do a lot of gigs sort of, you know, where it's a gig with a band, then you don't do something, you do a gig with another band, do this, do that, do that. To actually go away with one band and focus on music and play the same thing night after night and start to think, you know, there's things that, even things like, say, with Matt, it's quite complicated in terms of, for me, it was the first time I had to do a lot of pedals, start using effects pedals and jump between things like that. And it's, you know, like when we hit the chorus, I got to hit that one and then switch that one. And you know, there's a kind of choreography you learn about this sort of thing. And then after a few nights, it becomes natural. And you kind of go, oh, this is all. And then that kind of whole thing extends to the way you might respond to something else that one of the other guys in the band do it. And it's just lovely to have the luxury to develop music over a period of time and, you know, get beyond just, can I play it? And just say, how well can we play this together? And, you know, and Matt likes to we do in sound checks and things like that. We'll tinker with the music and say, what can we do better? What went wrong last night? You know, should we change this? It might be fun to do this section differently. Or, you know, and then suddenly he'll say, like, let's do Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel tonight. And so we all try and learn in Bath. He's just, I've got a great idea. We're going to do Sledgehammer tonight. I thought, well, all right.
Does anybody
want to
actually
learn
know
Sledgehammer?
Someone's writing the lyrics down off a phone like this and and I think Mark Morris sang it, and he was kind of like trying to hide the fact that you just had to, you know, because he didn't know it. We'd only learnt it about 2 hours before. And then we went performance.
We've seen
That's
those
so
videos,
funny.
and you would never tell.
You killed it. You killed it.
Right. That's amazing because I've seen the videos. I've seen whoever's doing the lead, usually, you know, depending on the song, with the lyrics, but the music itself sounds amazing. So
yeah.
How does it even happen?
He's like, I mean, Matt just like I think he just gets, you know, he's got a low boredom threshold. That's it, really. And so, you know, and I think he also quite likes he perhaps slightly thrives on, you know, like, because we'll do things sometimes and they're quite stressful. And then at the minute we did, what was it we were going to do? Oh yeah, Channel 4, we did this live, we played live at the end of one of the Toast of London episodes. We did, like he said, we're going to take my hand. We'll do it live. It'll cut to us live at the end of the show, you know. And then he was crapping himself just before he said, what? Why have I just...
my God.
What was I thinking? Kind of like, but you know, he's really enjoying it, really. And it was incredibly exciting. It was really fun to do it, you know, and we kind of got away with it, I think. It's sort of...
Yeah, you did. You
did.
got away with it.
Oh, yeah.
I was really upset when I got the Toast box set that wasn't
I know.
on there.
Yeah.
It lives on YouTube.
I feel like trying to think if it's on as a special feature, but it wasn't on at the ending like it should have been.
I don't know where these decisions are made.
What's your favorite song to play live?
Gosh. Well, apart from what I was telling you about, the playing Night Terrors and the sheer joy of playing something that silly, that early set. I actually, there's a couple of the long ones that I really enjoy building. Winter Solstice.
Yeah, so good.
Because even though I don't actually have to, it's not that hard, it's just when you get it, when they get it to build just right, it's so effective because it's kind of just this slow cooker one, you know, it just goes on and gradually build. And when you nail that and you kind of hit the next plateau and then the next and it's gradually built, it's just great. And you get, and then Andy goes into his, you know, it was always heading towards Andy and his solo for me, that one. And just like when he hits it, it was great. And then I used to really like, do you remember, Woman?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I think that is
my favorite song.
It's a very controversial song.
It's such a beautiful song.
I agree.
I think it's a beautiful song. I think it really is. Does it divide you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Tara and I are in agreement that we love it.
Yeah.
It was literally almost my wedding song, but we ended up going with the Hollies song, Air That You Breathe.
Oh, yeah.
A lot to my grandmother. Yeah. But it was almost Woman, like very close. Yeah. And every time I hear it, I'm like, tear, like one single tear.
Yeah, I think
it's really poetic and beautiful.
Apparently I'm just heartless and unsentimental.
Courtney has a black soul.
It's just weird. It's odd, isn't it? Because it's sometimes there are songs where Matt, you kind of think, is he revealing something which is not customary for Matt to reveal about himself? Or is he having is he laughing up his sleeve when he does these things? Sometimes, sometimes I'm not even sure if he knows.
Yeah.
Another one, there's some really lovely little sentimental one, like Song for Rosie. It's just such a cute little song about his niece. And on Night Terrors, oh God, is it Small Hours? You have to forgive me because a lot of these songs I've recorded them. Yeah, the Small Hours. Mm-hmm. Is that playing for you guys or not?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
It's the hours in between that I have doubt. It's the mist in the trees when fear mounts. It's the edge of the dawn when I feel low. It's the grey light that pours through the window. All combined with the strength of being alone.
Right, I'm going to fade it out just like a professional. I think that's beautiful, and I kind of said, Matt, we've got to do. And Cecilia loves this song as well, and we would pressure it. Said, can we do it live? And he go, no, I don't think so. I don't really, But I love it. I love that song, but it's I don't know. It's an interesting thing because I've done going back to this thing about when is Matt being ironic and when is he not being ironic, and
It's a fine line.
Yeah, but I would say to an extent with the music, he's never being ironic. In a way, I mean, it's with exceptions, because I remember doing a gig in Brighton, and this guy came up to me afterwards, and he was being all like, "Oh yeah, it was very clever the way you did that," and it's very, as if he was in on some joke. And I said,
"Yeah,
do you think? So how seriously do you Because I said I remember what did I say to it? I asked Matt about it one day, and I said, Pete, some people think think you're joking when you do He said, well, it'd be a pretty fucking expensive and elaborate joke, wouldn't it?
Right. Time consuming, not to mention.
to do, but. Yeah. So some people kind of come and hear it in a way that I don't think. I think there's more, genuine love for it, for what he's doing and the genres and things like that, than some people kind of like hearing it. I particularly some of the proggy stuff. I think. I mean, and it is kind of like, even when like you'll play the most kind of. I love the word bombastic. It's such a good word for prog stuff. When it's really pompous and really, now we're going into 7/8, and now we're doing this, and it's and it's even that. There's a kind of affection for that because that's from a period of time where you kind of you did that and excited as teenagers. You hear that and you think, oh, this is great, and I know later on I don't think it's. You can necessarily turn your back, even though perhaps you become more sophisticated, and I think you got to stay honest to your reaction that you had to that music at the time. I kind of think there's this period of time in our lives, and for me it was probably from 13 to 20, where music hit me so hard. It's never going to, and then I mean, and as you become a musician, you start to become more analytical about everything. It's almost like that's the price of the admission to being a musician is you will never enjoy music in quite the same way that you did when it was just hit you as an emotional. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, that is too accurate because there are albums like Alanis Morissette and Silverchair and weird stuff like that. From you're talking the exact same age, 13 to 20, where stuff had hit me, and it was so. You hear it now and you remember every single word and you haven't heard it for 10 years.
Yeah, it's extraordinary that, isn't it? How it's all there. I put something on the other day and I could not believe how quickly it came back. Like I knew what the next note was going to be. And I could barely even, it's extraordinary how our brain kind of stores all that away.
I've always been like that with lyrics. I always can pick up lyrics really fast, and I know I always retain them, which is super strange because I can't remember anything else. But I can remember lyrics for a song that I heard 15 years ago.
My son Ollie knows lyrics to everything. I mean, even songs. I think, how on earth do you know the lyrics to that song? Because he's only 20. And my sister, who's a lyricist, I drive her crazy because she knows I don't really listen to lyrics. I mean, there's a few I do. There's a few people who I really, really, like the lyrics mean a lot on songs, but a lot of the time, I hear the vocal melody really well, and it's all part of the music to me. And I understand how the music is kind of serving the vocal melody. But it's really, I've become much more. I think I've thought about songs a lot more in the last few years. That's something that actually I think I've come to. I've developed an awareness of, and which I should have developed an awareness of years and years ago, is like, serve the song in what you're playing. I mean, I'm much more simple a lot of the time in what I play these days, because who wants to hear what I can do on, who the hell's interested in that? It might fit in every now and then, you might put something in, but for the most part, all I should be doing is, serving the song as best I can, just playing the right thing to make the song come across. And that's what, that's what I'm trying to do a lot more these days. And I think also maybe that can, because I know that when I play bass on the stuff that I write, they're talking about, writing things, I tend to play much more simply if I've written the tune myself. Whereas and it's not quite ego. It's more like you think, it's like you want to try and give a lot to the song sort of thing. And then, but sometimes you think, no, it doesn't matter. Just play one note. That's all it needs at that point. That's what it is. You're not shortchanging people by not playing more or something like that. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, it's a lesson I try and teach my students now, but it took me I remember some guy coming up to me when I was like in my 20s. He said, "You're great." He said, "But what you need is sellotape around all your fingers and just play bass like that."
Oh.
That's what you need to. And I kind of, like, at the time I was really insulted, but now I kind of go like, yeah.
I would imagine, I would imagine that's really hard, though, when you do write the song yourself. You know exactly what the song needs, because it's your vision. So you're like, okay, this is just, I just want this. But when it's not your song, when you're playing something else, you kind of have to think of what that person wants me to do with it. And I could see how that would be really hard, easy to like overdo it.
And as I said, you overdo it out of, I don't know what it is, just trying to prove yourself or something. I don't know, but I think now I finally got the idea that you don't need to do that. You don't need to do it.
Phil, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Do you ever teach your students songs that you've performed on?
I was teaching someone, and I didn't offer it. They just said, "Can I learn "Take My Hand" by Matt Berry?" This morning I wrote out the chart for him, and
oh my God!
So he asked if he could learn it. So I do. I on occasion I would never make someone learn something unless I thought it was really helpful to illustrate a certain point about something.
Yeah.
I might get someone to learn one of my own, like something that I'd played on. But occasionally people just ask me and say, "Oh, how did you do that on so and so, whatever?" But I a lot of the time it would just be for, just to illustrate a certain point. So it might just be a little section of something, or just to talk about that same thing about. I might just say how I might approach playing bass on a song. The thing is that I think some of my strengths are, I'm interested in lots and lots of different music. I always have been. If you looked at my record collection, it's everything from like obscure classical stuff to dub reggae to electronica to, jazz to heavy metal to, everything. I just, I always have like lots of different things. And I will always try probably everything there. I will probably have picked up my bass at some point and tried to kind of figure out why does this style of music, why do they do this in New Orleans stuff? What's going on there? Or why do they do this in reggae, And so you have this stylistic kind of breadth, which means I can, like when I hear things, sometimes it'll make me think of a certain, you have it's what we teach, it's what we call now stylistic awareness. So we try and teach it to our students very much. Because, most students will come in, especially, with the college that I used to teach at with James, and like the rest of us, I love metal, I love this, blah, 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 and it's quite a narrow sort of thing that they're very good at. And then you just try and say, yeah, but look at all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And quite often they end up going down a totally different, they didn't even know they were going to go down in terms of the music they end up loving. And funny enough, James, with his partner Julie, when we were teaching at the college, they used to organise a trip every year to New Orleans. It just blew their minds. They'd go out and hear all these guys play, all these bands playing, and they'd all come back like, I don't want to play metal anymore. I want to. It was such a cool thing to do, and it was and they heard so much live music. I mean, that's you could argue, well, that's James and Julie's agenda to make them listen to that, but hey, there's a lot worse things they could be making listen.
Right.
Yeah. First of all, a trip to New Orleans, who's going to turn that down? But second of all, it's always good to listen to other stuff. You never know for sure what you're into unless you experience other things.
Yeah, absolutely. You've done a lot of touring.
Yeah.
What are some interesting or weird or, crazy things that have happened kind of in a general sense?
Okay. Going to East Berlin before the wall came down and ending up in the middle of nowhere through getting a bit drunk.
Oh my gosh!
without papers and ID. Trying to find my way back to the hotel without being arrested.
Oh my god! It's like,
and not just me. This wasn't my paranoia. I was told I had to be very careful and not speak because I probably would get arrested. The only trouble was I was wearing a Hawaiian. Everyone else was really. I was still wearing what I'd worn from the gig the night before, and I was wearing this really loud Hawaiian shirt and kind of I had no pay. Yeah, and it's just trying to find that was.
Oh my god!
I can't imagine.
It's like a miracle that you're even here right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch back on the small hours. You mentioned a while ago about kind of the lyrics and owning your previous work, and it seems like the small hours is one, along with Opium, that Matt does not have fondness for.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that, and I would to an extent say, and I'm kind of guessing here. So he might say you're completely wrong, but I would say it is about the process, the authorship, that it was like losing control.
Yeah.
A bit, not losing control, because he said, I want to do it this way. You know what I mean? I want to do it with the guys in the studio and track it live. And all I can say was it was really fun. While we were doing it, we had a ball. But I think afterwards it was kind of critically, it was kind of a bit mixed. And I read a couple of reviews, which I thought were a bit kind of snarky, saying, oh, maybe it's because he let the band, take part in this or something. I can't remember what magazine it was in. I read it. And I think, oh, thanks. Yeah. But to be honest, I actually think I think it's really good. I told him, occasionally, I don't listen to it often, but almost every time I do it, I nearly always say, oh, man, I just listened to it again.
Yeah.
It's a great album.
Good.
It always makes me kind of sad because it's my favorite of his albums, and it always makes me sort of sad that he doesn't have that affinity for it at all. And it just because when we did that episode, we kind of speculated, because that's what we do, whether it was because he didn't have that same level of control, which I think he mentioned in some interviews that he didn't like that, having to give some stuff up, or because it seems like out of all of his albums up to that point, that one, the lyrics were super raw, and maybe he just felt like he revealed too much. I don't know.
That's possible as well. Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, particularly because I think that's something that really touches me in the small hours. Is there's a fragility in the lyric and in the way he sings it that I've not heard before, and which I love. And I always said that to him, that I said, I love the way you sing on that. That there's this kind of, you're letting something, through that you don't often kind of sort of seem to allow through. And you may be right, Where's Matt?
Please ask Matt.
Well, it's kind of interesting because my favorite album from Matt is Opium, just because of the nostalgia. Yes, and he hates Opium. He I don't know it for sure, but we're pretty sure he hates Opium.
We're
so it
kind of
kicks me when I'm down. I'm like, oh, it was so good. It was so good for somebody just coming out doing, music. I mean, we don't talk about Jackpot.
That one doesn't exist.
Yeah.
We did talk about Jackpot, but
we did.
It's interesting
but there was not
because
much.
It sounds like he's so self-assured in the studio and so confident of what he's doing. And then there's these handful of albums that he's looked back on and sort of distanced himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would think, Opium, I'm just wondering, partly it's that he felt, as he, I think he probably, if he's anything like me, which I suspect he is, he still feels that you're always honing your craft, and you're going to be super critical.
Yeah.
But I also, I think there's every possibility that 10 years from now he'll put Small Hours on, you know what I mean? He'll go like, this is really good actually, because I've experienced that.
Yeah.
There was an album I did a long time ago. I won't bother telling you because it's a jazz thing. But all I remember is it was tough doing the album. It was tough, and I felt inadequate. It was really difficult. Some of the music, and I had a couple of really moments that stayed with me, where I was doing there were a couple of other bass players on the album, and while I was trying to do the most difficult track on the album, the other bass player turned up and he was staring at me through the window of the control room, and I was kind of felt I was really fucked. And it was just all this kind of trauma, not massive trauma, but so I didn't listen to it. And then about 10 years later, I put it on and went, well, this is great. It's kind of and you kind of what was that all about? All that stuff that was sort of, that you carry in your head. But I've got albums as well by various people that my favourite albums. Then you read somewhere, oh, we hated that album. That was we really felt that we were so disappointed. I go, well, not for me.
Yeah,
I loved it. Yeah,
it was fantastic. And it's so I'm not sure Matt is that interested. Once it's done, it's done. He's he doesn't listen.
That's exactly what we think. That's exactly what we think.
I don't think Matt is. He'll do it, and it's gone. It's not. I'd be very surprised if he listens much. I'm a bit different. I go through phases, but I do kind of. And I might sound like such a kind of egotist, but I do quite enjoy listening to stuff I've worked for hours and hours and hours on. I go yeah, that really pulled that off.
Well, I think most people are like that.
Rotation, but I do like revisiting, and every now and then I'll put an album on in the car and go, oh yeah, this was good. I don't think Matt does that. I don't think he does.
I think that's probably the exception. I think most people would go back and listen to their previous work just to even say, oh, that was good, but I could have done stuff differently. Yeah. Maybe for him that just bothers him.
He's on to the next. By his own, that's the way his mind works. He's kind of you got to catch him really, in a way. Again, I think that's he's very keen about doing another Milkbone album, and in a way he keeps having to go at me about it, sort of thing. But at the same time, when's he going to actually, it's like when I'm actually to do the thing, because he's he's working on another album now. I know, and I was looking at the band. He's got a notice board up on, he said, this album's going to blah, 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 blah. And he's kind of made bullet points to himself about what the album's got to be, it's got to have this, it's got to have that, it's got to have that. And he just goes out and he ticks it off and kind of and it'll probably be done. I wouldn't be surprised if it might be done in 2 weeks' time. Because that's the way, because also he knows he's got to go back to the States soon to do something.
I have a feeling that he's got a touch of ADD. I experienced that where the flip side of ADD that people don't realize is that you get hyper-focused doing things and you like to finish a project. Once you start it, you have to finish it. Yeah. You can't pause in between. Unless you absolutely have to do it. But I have a feeling that he does that too. Once he's in it, once he's in the mode, he'll not eat, he'll not sleep, he'll just finish it. And then
we're not diagnosing him, by the way. We're not diagnosing you, Matt.
An important disclaimer.
I definitely, I respond to deadlines very well from that point of view. If you told me I had to write something by tomorrow, I would do it. But if you said, "Oh, write something," I might. Yeah, it'll be it'll be months and months. So I do, and I think Matt kind of put a bit of that with when we were doing the Milkbone album. He was getting me to work it because for me it was very fast that I did that. But I felt like I was getting into his, he being carried along by his sort of enthusiasm and encouragement and whatever, and let's get this done, sort of thing. I think maybe it was very happy timing that he was around a lot.
Yeah,
just happened to be at that moment. He was delayed. He kept meaning to go back. Because he was supposed to be heading back to Canada to film, and they kept pushing the date back because of the COVID things like that. So it kind of all worked out in a way that may not happen again for quite a long time. So
well, it worked for us. Like we
totally
were
did.
so excited. And I have to ask you this: is Milkbone gonna come out on vinyl again?
I don't know. Is the honest answer is I kind of think we could have pressed up a lot more.
Yeah.
Matt
but you don't know. You don't know, right? Like
no. And also and then our next bright idea was to do it on CD, and I have 4 massive CDs in the other room that we're never ever going to sell. It was not a good idea. And Matt, he called it. He said, "See, don't do CDs." He was absolutely right.
He's very against CDs.
He went. You know,
he knew it.
He was, but he said, "Make it." He said, "We're going to make this as rare as what do you call it? As rare as rocking horse poo. That's what you got to do to get people interested."
Oh. Well, he sucked Courtney and I right into that.
I think that might actually be how I know how I first spoke with you, because I messaged you on Instagram trying to reserve one of my copies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, because I kind of like I set it all up, and I mean, it was interesting for me because I've not done. I kind of oversaw the whole thing. The CD, the vinyl production, and the Matt and I kind of did the album cover together. I mean, I did I kind of mastered the software to learn how to do it, to produce the artwork, but he was kind of very much supervising, because he's an artist, and so he had a very clear idea of what how it should look, and I loved that. I was so thrilled when he sent that artwork through.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful, and now that we know for sure it's a penis.
I think it was kind of obvious before, Tara.
Yeah, I think we already suspected, but the confirmation is
just from its usage in Toast. I think
that's it. That's it.
What did he say? Painting your father again? Is that what he said about the painting in Toast? So I meant to ask you before, and I totally forgot. With Milkbone, I was revisiting it today, and I think it's kind of obvious that Matt was working on the Blue Elephant at the same time or prior to Milkbone, because there's two tracks on Milkbone that overlaps with the Blue Elephant. I don't know if it's taken from or if they were done at the same time. Automatic Foot and 2 sequences. Automatic Foot is the Blue Elephant from the Blue Elephant, and then 2 sequences has music from Safe Passage from the Blue Elephant. So do you have any idea if he was just working on them at the same time, or if he was doing Milkbone first?
He was working on it at the same time, and he completed Blue Elephant first.
Okay.
And he's kind of in fact, I think he sent me some of those things. He sent them to me, and we put them in, and then he sent me Blue Elephant. I went, hang on.
That sounds familiar.
He says, we can recite. He said, there's nothing wrong with that. We can. And of course, he's absolutely right. There is absolutely nothing. And I kind of liked it in a way, because it kind of makes them a little bit like brother and sister album. In a way.
I agree. And he's mentioned recycling stuff before. He mentioned in some of the What We Do in the Shadows interviews that he's recycled. And, obviously he's recycled from the music from Toast into the Small Hours or vice versa. So, okay. So
but yes, he's that's you're absolutely right. Well, it's a good spot, because that's exactly what happened. But yeah, it was the Blue Elephant was I'm pretty certain it certainly came out first anyway, because he asked me. I remember him asking us to hold off on the Milkbone thing to give Blue Elephant some time to kind of which was as it turned out was absolutely fine. So that's why we kind of delayed it. I think for a few months.
I don't know. I was wondering it maybe because you said that he is definitely working on something, which is great news for us, because, we will eventually get to the end of his albums. We just did TV themes, but we split it into, it's going to be a 2-parter because there's a lot to go through on that one. And then we've only got 2 more, and then we're going to go through Milkbone. We're going to do the whole Milkbone album, and then gather up. So hopefully by the time we get towards the end, Milkbone 2, and then maybe a sibling for Milkbone soon.
We'll see. I mean, because I know also that Acid Jazz, Matt's record company, are quite keen for him to keep bringing things out, and so quite often they start and they also pressuring about the touring. Obviously, I mean, when I say pressuring, it's not pressuring because he really wants to do it, but it's been such a long time since we did it. I mean, I know COVID's part of that, but it's also he's just the way things have fallen, in terms of what he's been doing. I mean, he's like kind of like a what's the word, laissez-faire about what, sometimes he just mentions he's just done something absolutely oh yeah, I did this, because what he's doing, and then he'll say, oh yeah, but also I was like filming this or doing this, or they've I go, you never mentioned you were doing that as well. So oh yeah, I don't know, kind of like so he is extraordinarily busy at the moment. I can understand, there's trying to balance, well, not even balance, but to find a little corner for us to do some of the musical stuff.
That's a real consideration.
It's tricky. It was definitely, I mean, because at one point it was definitely on the cards this year. We were definitely going to tour this year, but I think, I can't talk about exactly what's happened, but I think something else has now come up, which we'll find out about in due course. I know you really want me to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you.
No, it's okay.
We don't want to pressure you either. Yeah.
We don't want. We would like Matt to come on eventually at some point. So
I just can't help but like, I want him to be super successful, because like I know that like all of the movie stuff and the TV show stuff is what makes you the money. But I just like, I've been so in love with the music for so long that I'm I just want to like see it.
I think the lovely thing for him probably is that he's never going to stop doing the music. And in a way, if everything went away, his success, he'd probably just go like, great, I can do that. I can actually do what I want to do. I mean, again, perhaps a bit speculative, but I think it wouldn't surprise me to an extent. He's certainly not going to be like kicking his heels, wondering what to do if it all sort of like went away one day. He'd just be cracking on with doing the music, doing some paintings or whatever. It's sort of
Well, that's great news that there is new music in the pipeline. I mean, I think we had suspected as much, but the confirmation is reassuring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely reassuring. And I just I wonder if he is doing so much just so he can. It would be awesome for him to be this busy with the other stuff, where he can just be like, okay, I'm going to take a break because I can. I don't need to worry about the money. I'm just going to, take a break and do what I love. And I'm going to get some music out and refresh and reset. And then if I want to go back to the other stuff, I'll go back to the other stuff, But it's just like, it'll be...
I agree with you. I wonder how that really, if that's how it really works. Not for him, but for everyone in that, does the machine just, unless you're super, super kind of like steadfast in it, is it just easier to go, okay, people are asking you left, right and centre to do these things, and you don't want to let those people down because a lot of them have probably put you where you are. You know what I mean? I guess it probably becomes quite hard to say no.
Right.
Again, that's me guessing as much as anything else.
That's what we do. We speculate.
Yeah.
We don't have any hard answers. But...
Until Matt comes on to speak with us.
Yeah. Be like, no, that's not true. This is what I'm doing. But yeah, it's I don't know. I feel bad sometimes because it does seem like he's pulled in a billion directions. And I hope he does say, no, I don't want to do this, if he doesn't think it's something that would be worthwhile for him.
Really, for the most part, he's quite open to trying things and doing things. I think he's definitely more likely to consider anything he's asked to do. He'll certainly consider it and think, yeah, maybe that'll be good. I don't think he's ever going to like, no, I don't do that. Yeah. He's always interested in what he might learn from it. With the new album, it's kind of like, I'm not, because Matt's saying he wants it to be, I think it's going to be really different because you must never do the same thing again. And I'm going like, well, I think there's quite a lot more to explore within the sort of things that we're exploring in Milkbone. I think there's a lot more that I'd like to sort of touch upon and things like that, because it references, but I mean, I'd like to think some of it's original, but it's definitely obviously a lot of referring back to lots of different musics that I listened to when I was young, and Matt and James as well, and I think there's loads more that we could be kind of like looking at within that. But then again, that was Matt's idea last week, that he wanted it to be really different from what we'd done before. So,
and that's definitely his trend. Other than Witch Hazel and Kill the Wolf, every single one of his albums are like completely like Phantom Birds and the Blue Elephant couldn't be more different.
No, I know, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, and that will be that's, and more power to him, really, for doing that. It's great. And I get it, but I also I know I've been guilty of like, especially going back to earlier on, talking about bass playing and overplaying and things like that. Part of that was feeling that I needed to reinvent the wheel every time I picked up the bass.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's kind of like you don't. You just kind of like you
just
really
do it.
Don't need to do it. It's kind of it's because then it becomes you doing it for the sake of doing it rather than and that's I'm not sure. The Milkbone thing, I'm not sure. I mean, I've written there's a lot of stuff, short sections, things like that, and it's been at the moment it's lots about moods and things like that. Matt sent me something the other day, and I just went like. He sent me 2 or 3 things, and then this one I went, Matt, that is absolutely it. That is so. It's just a bit of some synth stuff that he'd programmed, and he'd recorded it with a mic on, with a microphone on the speaker, so it sounded quite distant and a bit eerie. And as soon as I heard it, I went, "That's it. That's the atmosphere. Definitely for one of the tracks. That we want that." And it's. So I guess like that's how my criticism works. Is that I'm either going, "Yeah, that's great," or that's really it. You know what I mean? That's
That's so funny.
So then, but then I think then he knows really that now that
the more enthusiastic it is, the more you really mean it. That's funny. Yeah. There is something to be said, though. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I find so interesting with Matt's music is he is genre changing constantly, which always keeps it interesting and fresh, but also not knowing what you're going to get from time to time is weird, but cool. It's exciting. But at the same time, there's something to be said about a band that keeps the same style and just produces new music under that style. So I don't think it would be a bad thing for Milkbone is Milkbone, you come to expect it like to be this way. So, we can expand on that, but still make it fresh.
That's why I've got and that's why RedLodge, which is another thing that I do, which I've been trying to kind of like, I've been thinking about what it's like. I'd be interested when you guys hear it, what you think. I hear a lot of 80s, as if I feel like, what was I thinking? When a lot of it makes me think of kind of Tears for Fears and Talk.
Oh,
I listened
love
to
that.
I said, is that what I was kind of feeling a bit when I was writing this stuff? It's got a bit of that kind of production.
Yeah.
So it's a bit shinier production wise. I was interested to see like, could I do a bit more of that kind of slicker kind of production thing? And it seemed to suit Harriet's voice well and things like that.
I could see that.
It just seems like it's not sustainable to continuously completely change your style.
Who did it? David Bowie, I suppose, did it, didn't he? That became in a way over a period of time, this reinvention of yourself, either as a persona or as a stylistic, and it was extraordinary that he did that successfully sometimes and perhaps not so much other times. But also, I bet you'll find like across, if you quiz people, some people say, "Oh, my favourite album is Lodger," or something, one which is not really true. I find kind of quite difficult, or Low is the best album he ever did. Yeah. Whereas other people, it'll be Young American, Station to Station or something like that. It's
say Station to Station, yeah.
Kind of a purist that I like Hunky Dory.
I love
Hunky Dory, and Ollie is my son Ollie's favourite album as well of his.
It's pretty perfect.
Yeah,
can't really get much better than that. There's just not a lot of musicians that do it, and the ones that can do it successfully, like Matt does, I think it's special. Yeah. Paul Simon is another one that pops into my head that he plays with. Really different styles.
Really jump into a different genre and see and kind of set that this is going to be my palette for this for this album kind of thing. Again, perhaps that's as Matt being an artist, because I actually, and you won't mind me telling you this, I noticed on this post, this board where he's laying out what he's going to do for the album, he's listed the instruments he's going to use, and it's a very limited list of instruments that he's going to use on it.
Interesting.
Kind of setting himself this kind of, which we talked about a bit, and it's also slightly to do with when we were talking about redesigning the studio. Part of that is that he wants it kind of quite clear, but he can bring instruments in for a particular project, because his studio at the moment is just like, it's overwhelming. I don't know if it's ever, because I know there are pictures online of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I suspect we probably have the layout memorized.
All over the place. And he's kind of going like, yeah, but it becomes like, you've got an idea and then you spend 20 minutes looking around the room trying to think what you're going to use for that idea. He said, I want it all out of the room and I bring in 5 things and they are going to be the things that I use on this track or whatever, and that's it. So again, a bit like, I suppose you could say, limiting your colours.
Yeah.
And there's no bad thing about that. I kind of, in this world of computers where you can access any sound you want.
Right.
I ended up using mainly I've got an old electric piano, an old little synth that someone gave me. This, bits and pieces. I hardly used any software at all, and Matt didn't use, as far as I know, Matt didn't use any software.
Oh, cool.
And guitars and drums, and
yeah.
And I mean, I think actually, Matt he says, I can't believe how good the album sounds considering we did the way we did it. Which is like he said it sounds like it was recorded in a really great studio, and he said, I can't believe we just did it all in our rooms, sort of like. Yeah.
It's really
I know
amazing.
I'm not the most objective party, but I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
It's pretty astounding that you recorded it the way you did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we were like, how does that even work? I don't even understand how that would happen. But you're literally just passing along snippets of sound and layering and mixing, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are more, that that is exactly that really, and I think Matt, I kind of like quite often. It's very good for me because I do, I was doing quite a lot of the writing and it's just to have Matt to go, stop now, get rid of that, you're putting too much on. All this thing where he would just suddenly say, flip that round. Make what you think is the verse, the chorus. I mean, as much as you have it in an instrumental music, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chorus. Yeah. He said, it's obviously should be that way around. And I go, really? And then you just do it. And he said, yeah, trust me. And you do it and you go like, well, yeah. That's great. He's very Matt is like he hears stuff. I mean, he was listening to my son's stuff and he was going like, we were talking about because it's quite heavy on guitars and things like that. And he went, right, what he's got to do is he's got to get rid of all those guitars and just record one loud guitar. He said, you just need one guitar. He said, what he's got to learn is, I was playing it to him in the car, but he's like, yeah, he's just this thing. He's got the, it's that confidence just to go, this is what you need to do, to do. And to be honest, that's how stuff gets done. Yeah. And it might not be the only way. It's not the only way it could be done, but it will be done, in that way. And it's going to have his stamp on it, completely. So he'll tell me that with the Milkbone stuff. So you do this, and I go, yeah. And then I just kind of do the rest of it and then play it back to him. And he goes, yeah, that's right. That's not fair. But no, that's not fair because he was, he was very aware of my, he knew how much work I was putting into the thing as well, and he did. And at one point he said, look, Milkbone's your project. He said, I'm getting embarrassed because he was sort of, because he said, he was being interviewed about it a lot and stuff like that. And he said, look, you've got to, I said, well, no, the realism is, Matt, no one would listen to this album. I said, it's such a gift that you wanted to be part of this and things like that. But the main thing is, for the first time ever, I'm getting past the front door in terms of, like you said, you like the RedLodge thing. No one was interested in listening to that at all. And I've done so many albums with so many people, with Twisted Roots, things like that. This isn't me. I've just done so much good music over the years and just never seen it get past the front door of anyone, even to be considered, to be listened to. And it's just such a privilege. It's been so exciting, really, in a way, that people actually listen, finally listening to something that I've been involved in and going like, oh, this is good. And I said, yeah. So,
right.
But it's just, that's the reality, isn't it? We all know that's the reality.
Yes. It's really sad too, though, because the people, some of the artists that do get the recognition are just like, this crap though. Like, I just don't get it. I just really don't. And then there's so much good music that's just word of mouth, really. Yeah. I never would have heard of the Twisted Roots or RedLodge, or I wouldn't have heard of any of that over here. That's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this podcast, is because even Matt is not well known here. I mean, he is more now because of what we do in the shadows, but nobody knows his music. And we're like, okay, we're people out of maybe a handful that knows his music and would love to spread the word about it, because I feel like it's, he's not just the funny guy. This is this whole other side that's just really remarkable, and people need to know. And people here really don't know. It's not easy to get his albums. I mean, you really have to jump through a lot of hoops, or like pay a ton in postage to get stuff for it to just be sitting there for months and months before it even gets here. And
I'm surprised he hasn't got distribution in the States. I have to say.
So are we.
Yeah.
My worry is, I have to tell you this, I have been waiting for probably 13 years to see Matt live. And I am worried now that he is so popular that they're going to announce UK dates and they're just going to be done. And I can't even get one, even with my, like, I will fly over the pond to see it. Like, that's what I'm worried about. I just feel like it's going to be.
I would say, hey, I'll give you a heads up, but I can just imagine I won't get told until.
Sounds like that's not right.
3 weeks notice. Yeah, we're gonna be like, shit.
Let me ask, what are you listening to now? What do you recommend? What's on your turntable?
Yeah, what is on my table? Not a great deal apart from my son's mixes, which seem to take me forever. His albums. I'm not trying to be facetious, or I don't actually listen to that much music apart from stuff that I'm working on. It's partly to keep your heads clear a bit, because I do a lot of mixing and mastering and things like that, and I'm listening super critically a lot of the time. I have a friend. My oldest friend, actually, I've known him since I was about 8 years old, and he still lives quite near me. And he's not a musician, but he is a complete music nut. And he keeps me provided with playlists. And it used to be he'd keep me provided with mixtapes. Then it was CDs, and now it's playlists of all kinds of things. He's got really broad, a broad taste as well. So he's always been a good source for all kinds of things. And he'll choose some kind of like he'll say, right, I'm going to take accordion, but I'm going to send you stuff to every possible kind of music that features accordion.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that. And so you'll get, and you suddenly realize it's all over the world, and you'll go like from, again, you can like dub reggae has, got like accordion or melodica on it, or some East European thing, or obviously all the deep South kind of things, Zydeco and things like that.
I love Zydeco.
And a lot of South American bandoneon things like Astor Piazzolla and things like that, and you just go like, oh my god, this is such a cool way of of kind of hearing things. Then he got into mandolin massively and played me stuff from all over the world from mandolin, including some extraordinary stuff. There's a Brazilian guy called Hamilton de Holanda, which was incredible. But and then I'm just kind of, I'm still having the interest in sort of jazz and things like that. I guess I'm listening to some of these younger players, people like I don't know if you guys will know them, like Lewis Cole or Snarky Puppy, or who are doing quite interesting compositionally sort of stuff. And again, is it jazz really? It's quite electronic, quite a lot of it. I went to see a band called Ghost Note the other day at Ronnie Scott's. Amazing band, kind of recreating a bit like the James Brown kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
But, incredible band. And then like stuff my son, he's just been getting me into some singers, singer-songwriters that I should have been more aware of, and a lot of pop stuff that I kind of going like, do you know the Beths from New Zealand?
I love them.
I
just bought a couple of their albums.
They're fantastic. He went to see them last month, I think. He's kind of obsessed with them at the moment, and but also, he's gone like, he wants to be Stephen Malkmus from Pavement at the moment. I think that's what he really wants to be.
There's worse things to emulate.
Yeah, totally. And Elliott Smith, he's really into as well.
Elliott Smith is like my go-to for a lot of things in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ollie, to be honest,
Absolutely.
I don't think he'll mind me discussing this whole music thing happened. He was 16 when he lost his mum, in 2019, and this whole music thing's happened about. He'd been interested in music before that, but the writing and everything all came out about 3 months after that happened. It suddenly all this stuff started coming out, and we played and we ended up playing together stuff. And when we do that, I produce his stuff for the most part, and it's been really good for us, sort of, to kind of keep us sort of really bonded us well. And And it's I think it's certainly kind of, it's been his release, and it's just so cool to see that he seems to be touching wood, that something seems to be happening a bit for him with it. He's at university as well. He's just started at university, and that's he's a bit, he's 20, but COVID and taking a year out after losing his mum meant, he's kind of started a bit late. He's come to it all a bit late, and it's just been so cool to see him kind of embracing life in a way, that it's been a bit delayed, but he's really having a great time at the moment, doing all the things he's been doing.
That's good.
Did you think that he was going to be into music in the same way that you were?
He told me he was too intelligent to be a musician. Yeah.
Oh my god. That is a burn. Okay, so that is a burn. So you never saw it coming, and then
I knew
bonded over it.
Very musical. He's very musical, and he liked playing and fiddling around and things like that. But he said, "No, I don't think I'll actually." And he's studying sociology and he's writing. I still think I'll be interested. He's at the moment, he's really got his eyes on the music thing. He's working really hard at it and working on his, the writing and everything. But also, he's pretty dogged with the social media and all that side of things as well, which of course you have to be now. Yeah. But I'm wondering if I'm not sure what he might end up doing, whether he might end up writing or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, so a lot of things I've been listening to through him, mainly because he won't let me near if we're driving anywhere or anything like that. Using and then occasionally I'll try and find something that I think he might like some XTC. I played him some XTC, and he actually really liked some of that. And I kind of always trying to think of bands from that period that he might find, that he might really like some of their songs. And he kind of goes, he goes like, he's kind of goes, and then I see him, and I know he's added it to his playlist.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm kind of guilty of doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, and then like, what was that again?
Yeah. Shazam.
That's hilarious.
So I've been curious about the vinyl because I'm very into indie rock. They will do like very limited runs of the vinyl, and then it's like just like a clusterfuck of people being like, oh, all of a sudden the vinyl is worth double or triple of what
I've seen
put out for.
I have seen a couple of copies of Milkbone coming up on eBay, which I was quite surprised by. I think vinyl has been a bit of a saviour for a lot of bands, because people want to buy it at the moment, and it's expensive to make, but the profit margin is people are prepared to pay a decent whack for it. And I think if you make it kind of value added to an extent, if you make it something nice that people want to have as well, because that's what albums meant to me back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Something about holding them in your hands and reading all the sleeve notes and just that the physicality of it. That I think people miss. And Matt's, has said to me on numerous occasions, we couldn't finance the tours without the merchandise. But
so that's why we've been a little bit sad, because I feel like he has no reason to do it besides his like love the music. And like, would you really want to do it for no money? Do you want to do it for no money? And everybody is out there like, oh, say the Laszlo thing, and we're like, shut up. Like, we'd be in the audience like beating people up for saying that.
I think that's part of the problem now, because he's waited so long between touring, and you said it was already an issue in the Small Hours tour, and we were actually talking about what if you all came here and toured, but then you have like 99% of the people are only going to know him as Laszlo, and then, going back and seeing the other stuff. So he's going to have to fight that whole thing again about
some kind of campaign, wouldn't you? Before you come, you'd have to, the only way I could see it, you'd have to run some kind of publicity thing where this is what this is about. This isn't about, the only way I can imagine it working.
Or being on a podcast about music.
Or being on a podcast, exactly. A long time ago, when we finished the Night Terrors album, and Matt was thinking about doing remixes, and he said, "Oh, do you fancy doing a couple of remixes?" And I went, "Yeah, all right, I'll have a go." And I wanted to do Obsessed and So I did this, but we never did anything with it. I did it, and then that was it. And Matt said, "Oh yeah, I really like it," and it was one point there was going to go on a remix album that he released But so that was, so that was the first thing that Matt ever asked me to do, sort of like, and he just rang me up after he said, "You're mad, but I like it." So, he said, "I love it." So anyway, we did it. And then I spoke to him. I said, I was going to do this. And I said, "Do you mind if I put it out there?" And he said, "No, do whatever you want with it. It's for you guys." I realised, even though I didn't know it at the time,
because
it's for you guys. No one's ever heard it before. So
that's awesome.
You probably hate
That's
it.
so exciting.
Obsessed and So Obscure remix.
I think my heart now beats for 3. I think my heart now beats for 3. Obsessed and so obscure, I felt my head decapitate without a sense of it all. I'm stood between 2 trees. I must have been 100 feet, but had no fear of it all. I think my heart now beats for 3. You and me and Christopher Lee. I'm paid to aid escape, but where the hell am I to go to get away from it all? There's blood across your face. You've been amongst the animals, yet you deny it all. I went into the woods and found myself a laser gun before blasting you all. I think my heart now beats for 3. You and me and Christopher Lee. I think my heart now beats for 3. You and me and Christopher Lee. I'm paid to aid escape, but where the hell am I to go to get away from it all? I think my heart now beats for 3. Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and Christopher Lee. Obsessed and so obscure. I think my heart now beats for 3. Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and the BBC. I think my heart now beats for 3. Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and Christopher Lee. Obsessed and so obscure. I think my heart now beats for 3. Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and the BBC.
That is so exciting. You don't even understand how excited we are. We may
know.
look chill, but like we're so excited.
No, seriously.
So excited.
Cool. Oh, that's fun. Haven't we?
Yes.
We did really well. Thank you so much.
And I just want to say we are so appreciative. This
Yes.
has been really cool.
Oh, I really enjoyed
We
it.
really do appreciate it.
Right. Well, we want to thank Phil once more for joining us. It's been better conversation than we could have dreamed, and we're so grateful for having him on. As always, you can follow us for more content at Obsessed Obscure on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and on our Discord channel. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next time.
My heart now beats for 3.